Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. And joining us now, Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze.
Yes. Good to be back, man, for part two. Domo arigato, my friend, for the nice introduction, and also to all of our fine wrestling fans for tuning back into part two of our top 10 Japanese wrestlers and a little bit of a brief wrestling history, man. How are you, Professor?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
Doing pretty good, my man. Doing pretty good. Thought of a couple things since last week's episode. Come in Tokyo, okay? Minami, Tokyo. I forgot Toyota there. I butchered her name a little bit last week, but I watched a couple of matches this week. And a lot of times on the announcers, as well as the fans, they go by their last name. So a lot of times they was going Toyota, you know. So I was just like, okay, I'd forgotten that.
Well, it's in Japan,
or whatever.
Yeah, well, in Japan, your family name comes first, and then your personal name second.
Yeah, so there you go. And didn't mean to butcher it so bad, but anyway, she's got some good matches out there, of course, to make this list. We'll go over that list in a minute. And I wanted to tell us something just kind of warm us up for Japan.
Yeah.
Sometimes the way the wrestlers are treated in Japan outside the ring, like when you go around town and things, or the city have you. It's really crazy in a way. It's very respectful, of course, but they have these boards. I must say it's probably about a board, meaning like a white canvas, like a notebook composition paper, but it's like it's a cross between a composition paper and cardboard or a canvas that you would do oil painting on. Okay. I think it's about the size of a composition notebook paper. And it cost $10 each at the time, 10,000 yen or whatever it was, the conversion areas, Professor. And I had two instances involving these that I thought I'd bring up. One, someone ran up to me at the show and handed me one. Well, I took my felt tip magic marker, or, whatever, your Sharpie. And up in the corner, no one had signed it yet, so I just did a regular size signature like a Bobby Blaze, leaving plenty of space open. My thinking being, they're going to get everyone's autograph on this, baby faces on it or foreigners, whatever they're going to do with it. I just happen to, and so the guy just looks at me, and I honestly, I look at him like, hey, I signed it, and he just gives me this look like you fucked up, buddy, but it wasn't a harsh or disrespectful look. It was just like disappointment more.
Gotcha.
And he said something, and then Willie turned. Willie Wilkinson Jr. was behind me, and I was selling T-shirts, and he was selling dream catchers because he's Native American, and of course signing the autographs. Well, that was the first one I signed to those, and so Willie, they had a conversation lasted 10, 15 seconds, and Willie looked at the thing. He said, "Bobby," he said, "This is for your autograph only. You need to make it as big as you can because they take pride in these and hang them up, and they collect them. And this is all for you." And he goes, "These cost $10 each." And I go, "What do you want me to do?" It was really nice. Again, no harshness, not like that. So I said, "You want me to sign my autograph on the rest of it, like big?" And he said, "No." He went and got a fucking another board, spent another $10, and had me do it, So I thought, he didn't, I don't even know what he did the little one, to be honest with you. And the little one being probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 inch letters, but he wanted a whole board taken up. And that was very cool, but I thought, man, the dude didn't have to go, and buy another board. I would have taken it with double autograph, I guess. But anyway, that's one instance I had. And another one was involving the same deal. We were in a town up in northeastern Japan, and we stayed at a hotel. We'd stayed at, that's Sasuke's home area, and that's where the office was at. Well, we stayed at this hotel, and I went you go down to the store, like a 7-Eleven, but I can't remember the exact name of them. They're obviously not 7-Elevens, but they're kind of a chain store, and they got private ones as well. The owners, you know what I'm saying? So you could put whatever you want. And this one particular store, they had those boards up at about probably, I don't know, 7 foot up in the air, like you see these old movie star pictures, and they just had around the building, around the three of the four walls, they had the pictures they had autographs of each wrestler. And so when I went in there one day, the guy asked me, with Chad Collier this time, and asked me to sign one of the boards. So I signed it, and thought, that's pretty cool, man. Well, so we're in the same town and in the same hotel, mind you, so, which is right around the corner. So the next day I go, and there's mine, Bobby Blaze up there, and I'm with like Steve Williams and Terry Gordy, like in that little section. And I'm like, fuck, how cool is that,
Yeah.
So now I kind of get that in my mind, okay, there's Gordy, Williams, there's Bobby Blaze, and, a little bit of pride there. You're like, that's my autograph up there on this guy's wall. Well, we go out of town for a couple of days. Little beknownst to me, we come back. I know the town we're in, okay? I can't think of it. Wate, I think. Yeah, Wate. But we have to stay in a different hotel, okay? The one we had stayed at was booked out, or where it was when we left a couple of days. So now Chad's taking me back to this store to get, it's like a Sandry store or whatever, to get some goodies and whatever, they sell everything from boiled eggs to fried chicken to, pork skins and all that stuff, and sodas and beer and whatever you need, And so we have to walk a little bit further. We go like down a street, over a street, down a street, over a street, blah, blah, blah. Well, I walk in and I go back to pick up what I'm going to get. I look up and I said, man, they got an autographed picture, photo, or the thing of me, the board, in this store too. How cool is that? That guy must have been at the matches, man, or something, So I told Chad, I said, come here, man. Now, I just, as soon as I saw my name, I blanked out, okay? Because I didn't see Gordy. It was like Williams, Gordy, Blaze, and then whoever else. And I'm like, fuck, man, this is really. And so I was like, told Chad, I said, think this guy come to the, he goes, Bobby, this is the same store we was in a couple of days ago. I go, what? What? He goes, yeah. He goes, dude, he said, we're in a Wadi. I said, yeah. He goes, but the hotel's different, as you know. He said, we're in the same fucking town, dumbass, Rib would be like, tell me the truth, like, hey, hillbilly or whatever,
Yeah.
Like, we have shopped here every time we're in this town.
That's funny.
That's not for, yeah. So anyway, thought we'd go into that. But the owner of the place, put mine up there, and he put it with the others. And I don't know if it's because he put the Americans up there or bigger guys, or, because he had a shitload of them around his whole store. But yeah, the second time I saw it, I thought, well, different store. They got it over here too. It's just Americanized thinking that, they do, fucking Xerox it or something, or mimic, whatever. I don't know. But I just thought that opened up our show, Jeremy. Just a little story there.
That's really cool. My buddy that taught school in Japan, what his prized possession that he brought home from Japan is an oil painting of Charles Bronson.
Oh, okay.
He went into some store and somebody had painted a Charles Bronson portrait in oil, and he bought it on the spot. And he's had it in a place of prominence in every place he's lived since then.
That's pretty. Hey, man, Charles Bronson's pretty badass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bobby, I ended last week, and we're continuing our top 10 wrestlers in Japan this week. But I actually had a question kind of holding over in my head here.
Okay.
In Japan, they sometimes have slightly different rules than traditional American wrestling does. And one of the things I've noticed, a lot of them have a 20 count outside the ring.
I thought that's where you was going when you said that.
Yeah. Did you ever run into that? And does that screw your timing up when you find a rule like that?
No, because generally it depends on what type of match you're in. You as a baby, if you're in a tag team or a 6-man, you'll attack the heels. The heels will attack the baby faces and go outside the ring. They give you quite a bit of time right there, so they don't actually ring the bell till you get in.
Okay.
And if you're involved in a match and you go outside, no, it's just a matter of time knowing that you can stay out there a little bit longer. you got to get a little bit of heat on the guy a little bit longer, So you've got 20 seconds. So, you might not go through. That's why you have time when you see like, not when it's like a no DQ, say a Brody or an Abbey or what have you, but you'll see it when they go out through the crowd and the fans scatter. You got time to actually go back to against the gym wall or stairs and bash a guy there and then work your way back to the ring. It just gives you more time to let the babyface sell.
Okay.
I was usually heel on anything I did outside the ring, so I would just, like especially with Sasuke, I just follow him around, and the referee would stand there and count, and I'd follow Sasuke. There's the wall, there's the chairs, there's the wall, there's the stairs, and he's working back in, and it could be 18, 19, what have you. So you just get a lot more in. That didn't mess me up at all. I don't think any experienced wrestler, unless you was just totally like in your head going, I got to speed up and do this real quick and then roll back in. I don't think it's a problem.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because it seems to me like anytime there'd be a slight change, I would probably obsess over it for a day ahead of time,
Yeah, no, it's not. It really isn't that big of a deal. And that's a great question. But it just gives you, like I said, gives you more time to slow down and get your heat and let that baby face, sell through the crowd because they're so into, we talked about, they want to reach out and touch you, so to say, or scatter away from you. Depends on, what their deal is as a fan,
Yeah.
That most of the time they want to get away from you. I think unless you're the Sheik and they're scared to death of, and they say you're supposed to touch something you're afraid of, you try to run up and maybe touch the Sheik so you can get some good luck or good karma going or something. I don't know how, but as far as I know, to me, it was always great with Sasuke because he was so easy. You just follow him around. He had that full body gear on. You're just tossing him. He's going through chairs. He's going up against the wall. He knows where the stairs are at or where he's going to roll back in the ring at. Very easy, very easy. So, and I would imagine the way I worked, had I been getting my ass kicked out there as a baby face, it'd have been just the same. I would have to pay more attention if I'm leading to get back to the ring,
right,
as opposed to following. But as far as that goes, I would just been out there selling till whenever, I got the Iggy to, hey, head back to the ring kind of thing, or paying enough attention that the referee's on 15 or 16 or whatever,
Yeah.
So, yeah, good question, man.
Yeah, it was something I was curious about and, probably meant to ask last week and just never got around to it. Do you want to recap last week's 10 through 6?
Yes, that sounds good. We had number 10 was the Gaijin. That was the American wrestlers. We just talked about some of our usual suspects on there. Our Hansons, our Brodies, our Butchers. Won't mention a few others, but we had several of them, the Funks and Thez and different people, and we're going to go over a couple of those. Number 9 was Manami Toyota.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, but I didn't butcher it that time. 8, we went to Okada. Okada, and we just said watch his matches. We had Muda for number 7, and number 6 we finished up with Jushin Liger, and you gave some different variations of some different characters he had done as well. When he become evil, Liger, I guess, was Kishin Liger.
Yeah.
That you said, and that's going to take us to number 5, where we're going to start off today. But Jeremy, what we have to do, or I'd like to do, if you don't care, I'd like to mention a time warp. A good friend down at Earl, once again sponsoring the show. So I'm just going to read this live, and you can add in when you want to, brother. But the time warp in Ashland, video games, sports fans, nostalgic enthusiasts. Are you ready for a time warp? Jeremy says, Yes, he is.
I'm always ready for a time warp.
There you go. Well, the Time Warp is a brick and mortar hobby shop with a huge selection of everything sports, gaming, and collectibles in downtown Ashland in 2 locations in the Ashland Town Center. And when you come out, Jeremy, we're going down there just so you know.
All right.
They've got vintage toys, sports cards, collectibles, and they've got tons of wrestling merch, people. It's the largest selection of memorabilia, spit out there, Bobby, in the tri-state area. Time Warp has an extensive inventory of vintage and current video games and consoles. I know you're like that. It's a 100% must visit for retro gamers. Time Warp, it does on a daily basis, buys collectibles daily. They are open 7 days a week, Jeremy, 363 days a year. They're only closed on Christmas and Thanksgiving. And folks, if you're out there, you can check them out on their Facebook page at Time Warp Ashland. Tell them that Bobby and a professor sent you there when you order something online. Or if you visit the brick and mortars here in the downtown Ashland area or at the Ashland Town Center, say, hey, if Earl's around, make sure you say hey to him, or let the employee know that, hey, Bobby Blaze and a professor on a Bell to Bell podcast sent you down there, and, check out some of their stuff, especially some of that wrestling merch.
Oh yeah. I've kind of browsed through some of the stuff they have on offer. There's a lot to look at. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. So, definitely give the Time Warp in Ashland a look, and, check them out on Facebook because they will do mail order.
Cool deal. And thanks again, Earl. We appreciate that very much for this week's sponsorship.
Absolutely.
That's going to lead us to May the 7th, Saturday, May the 7th. The second Bluegrass Wrestling Con is coming back to Ashland, Kentucky, and I will, at a later date before then, confirm who will be there. As of right now, I know I'm going to be there. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's going to be there, and Sergeant Slaughter. I'll just leave it at that for now. So big things are happening for the Bluegrass Wrestling Con coming to Ashland, Kentucky. Brought to you by the Time Warp and FTC. And that'll be at the Ashland Highland Museums in a beautiful downtown Ashland area where Magnum TA said he did not know there'd be a building that big in Ashland, or in a city this size, rather. And on a Saturday afternoon, on the 6th floor of that building, they'd be that many damn people. And we're going to do it again May 7th.
That was pretty funny. Yeah.
That was, yeah. It sure was.
All right. So let's,
number 5.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to number 5. Why don't you intro this one?
Okay, I sure will, man. Let me get my notes back up.
Yep.
Here. Oh, Lord, wait a minute. What did I do with my notes? I'm reading a commercial here.
Okay, number 5 is going to be Tiger Mask.
I've got mine up, just so you know.
Okay. Well, you can do the next one.
Okay, Tiger Mask.
Yeah, so Tiger Mask was actually based on a comic book where he was a professional wrestler who was a feared heel. But he turned face after he went to Japan, and a young boy said he wanted to be a villain just like Tiger Mask. That would suck. Sayama, the original Tiger Mask, feuded with, I'm going to mess this guy, Kuniaki Kobayashi, Canada's Bret Hart, England's Chris Adams, Steve Wright, and the legendary Dynamite Kid, Mexico's Fishman, and the original Black Tiger. And Black Tiger was kind of like Bizarro Superman. Like the evil opposite of Tiger Mask. So far, Bobby, there have been 6 Tiger Masks?
I think that's what you've got down here.
Yeah. Sayama was number 1.
Yep.
Misawa was 2. Kanemoto was 3. Yamazaki was 4. Manoa was 5. And then Tiger Mask W is a Bushi, but I'm not sure what the difference between W and 6 would be in this case.
Yeah, I'm not either. I wrestled Tiger Mask number 4. Hell of a good performer, man. Hell of a good wrestler. And a pretty good guy. He was, number 4 was actually, I think, a son-in-law of Gran Hamada, if I'm not mistaken. They were kin in some way. Pretty good size. He wasn't as big as, thick as the first 2. But he had good size, and he could do all the moves, of course. And they actually, that's just not a spot they hand to someone. That person has to be able to do everything Siami did.
Yeah.
The Tiger Mask won. So they had to be able to carry that gimmick on, because let's go to our old reference, the Barbarossa,
Yes.
Willie Nelson, Barbarossa, their old red beard, carrying out tradition in Mexico. Well, and then Gary Busey at the end, hurrah, the last hurrah, like everyone starts mumbling under their breath, Barbarossa.
God, that's such a good ending.
Same. Oh, fuck yeah, it is. Well, the same thing here. One Tiger Mask, finish, but they have another one in training for 2 years, are ready up and go, and the tradition lives on, man, for years and years and years, to be, for the professional wrestling fans of Japan, their enjoyment. And one thing I'd like to bring up, I'm going to let you start it off, if it's going to throw a debate out there to you, and that is Dynamite Kid and the original Tiger Mask.
Yeah. I rewatched that this week. Probably more clips than the whole match. I mean, kind of went through it, but the speed that Siama moved at is just mind-boggling. We were talking about the switch between the headlock, hammerlock, and then the drop toe hold. And yes. It's just, he looks like he's spinning in a circle, and the next thing you know, guy eats shit,
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable. And Dynamite Kid is no slouch. And there are points in there where it looks like Tiger Mask is walking in circles around him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a lot of people refer to, as we spoke about this offline, the 1981 match from Madison Square Garden. Very good match. Opened a lot of eyes. Got a lot of eyes on the smaller guys. And when I say smaller, we're just talking maybe a bit shorter in stature, because they both have some serious muscle mass.
Yeah.
Strength and all that. But as a professor, and I was speaking offline, off the air, we talked about that spot, how fast he was. Hey there, Cow Dog. Welcome to the program.
Yep, there she is.
If you watch those matches from Japan around some of that same time, 79, 78, 80, 81, I'm going backwards in time here.
Yeah,
82-ish. When you see them on, whether you watch clips or you watch the whole matches, it looks to me, and I used to watch these with my youngest son, because he loved Dynamite Kid, to see him work. Well, it looks like it's a struggle. They're not as smooth. The match in Madison Square Garden is very good. They pull it off really good. But at this time, it's been refined pretty good, that they're working together really good. But in some of the other matches where Tiger Mask is so fast, like you said, he's going around Dynamite Kid, headlock, switch, hammerlock, drop, toe hold, boom, spinning up and move it into something else off the ropes. The Dynamite's countering that just as quick. It looks like it's not a smooth transition, and nor it should be, because two men in a competition, that we talked about last week, and it looks that much more real.
Right.
As a competition, it looks like they're actually, instead of saying, okay, and normally you wouldn't say this anyway, because if you're, I was taught, and this is why I believe, if you're touching, you shouldn't talk, because you're wrestling. You can just feel where this guy's going. I feel where I'm pushing you to, where you're pulling me to, and we just work from there. Give and take, whatever. So it looked like if Dynamite, or in this case, Tiger Mask, say he wanted to grab the headlock, it looked like Dynamite made him, if you want this headlock, you have to grab it. You're going to have to beat me, and that's why I think he was so fast, or used all the speed there. You're going to have to get me in a headlock before I get you in one, because I'm going for something on you. And Tiger Mask got there first and grabbed that first headlock. From there, Dynamite let him work, of course,
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. But then he counters off that hammerlock, or I think he comes from a drop toe hold up to the hammerlock. When he comes back up there, Dynamite reverses that, and boom, he starts eating him up until there's a spot. So it really makes it, what we talked about last week, it makes it look like a damn competition. And it makes you sit there and watch as a fan, just like we was talking about in Japan. And that's what they do. They sit there and they watch that, and they pop for little things. And then when they do something really big, they really pop it. Whoa, and then they give the applause. So, but anyway, Tiger Mask. So we're up to Tiger Mask W. And I guess we should have looked up. I'm not quite sure what the W means, if that's 6 or why it's a W, or whatever the deal is there.
Anyway. I'm sure there was something there, but I was in a hurry when I was putting this together.
Oh no, it's all good. Just and of course, several people has been the Black Tiger as well, as we know. I think Eddie Guerrero was one of them at one point. think. But anyway, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So Tiger Mask W is a different character, but kind of like a lineage character based off of Tiger Mask.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah, so instead it's not actually it wouldn't be a sixth Tiger Mask, it would be a first Tiger Mask W.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up. Now we know, and that's Kota Ibushi, right? Ibushi?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right,
well,
so
I'll tell you this real quickly, too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a couple of these guys eventually removed their mask, but while they were in the gimmick, just like Mil Mascaras in Mexico, these guys, especially I was around number 4, never were out in public without their mask on, no matter what they did. So that's pretty cool, because people recognize them as a superstar and that lineage, like, oh, Tiger Mask comes to the store, and he's looking up there and there's Bobby Blaze's name or something,
Yeah.
But and the people are respectful of that. They don't even they might not have it even laced very tight or anything, but they put it on when they get off the bus, and go into the store or wherever they're at. They kept that mask on, especially at the venues.
Oh yeah.
Anywhere near the venue, whether they showed up privately or on the tour bus or what have you. Not very many people saw him without the mask on at any given time.
Yeah, well, the Japanese and the Mexican wrestlers take their mask probably the Mexicans a little even more seriously even than that, but they both take them very seriously. You got to look at El Santo and Mil Mascaras. I believe they were both buried in their masks, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I just saw someone post a statue of Santo somewhere,
there
in Mexico City or something that flashed on my Twitter feed or whatever. Speaking of Twitter, social media, you can find me on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744. You can find the Professor at the Geekish Cast on Twitter. You can join our joint account on Twitter at Bell to Bell Blaze, and there's also a Facebook page that's Bell to Bell Blaze. Those are all easy to access, and if you want the most interaction from our guest or a co-host or star of the show, just write me there, talk to me on Twitter, because that's about the best I'm gonna get to you on social media, because that's where I stay more active at day when that's Twitter world.
Yeah, that's the best way to contact him. Of course, we're on Facebook. I try to be on Instagram, but I suck at it, so it's really not,
I was actually getting good at it, but I was just taking too much I was just telling someone the other day, Jeremy, I'd stay on it for an hour, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would limit myself to 15 minutes. And next time I was doing, I look at it, I'm like, okay, I was doing 15 minutes 4 times a day. That's still an hour.
Yep.
Then I went through some bad mental health deal, and it started hitting some trigger points. And I tried to go back on once, and I seriously have thought about this recently, about getting back on it, but I seem like I'm doing much better now. So I tell myself maybe I will. Because I've met so many more neat people and cool people through Twitter, to have Instagram, but I'm gonna still hold off a little bit longer. But I did enjoy it a little bit too much, probably. That's why I had to get off there.
Well, for me, mine is supposed to be to promote like whatever podcasts I have going. So like this show, and pretty soon here that new Star Trek show, originally Geekish Cast and The View from Dog River. But what I discovered was that pretty quickly my Instagram account became boobs and butts really fast. And I've been trying to clean that out of there, but then what I've discovered is I just end up looking at more boobs and butts, so I just, kind of shut it off.
Yeah, well, I was looking at podcasts. I'd see that because I wasn't looking for them. I'd already seen them on Twitter, and I'd be like, wait a minute. I'm following this guy on Twitter, and now he's posting, I've done seen this. And then, of course, I'm going to look at the girls, and I'm like, I look at a certain type of girl. I'm like, oh, okay, how many times can I like this girl now,
Yep.
Or, and I had it on there, pay it forward and be kind, add random act of kindness type thing. But also the whole picture deal is going to be, me, my T-shirts, my wrestling, my books. Again, trying to keep positive. But when I looking, I'm like, I'm looking for other things than positivity here. I'm out here in fucking la la land, looking at certain types of girls and certain wrestlers that I followed. I'm like, damn, I'm already following them on Twitter. What do I have to see their? I was glad to see them, but I'm like, I don't need to see them twice.
Yep.
Or that picture rather. So I may get back on there. We'll see. We'll see, man.
No, it's fun. Yeah, it's cool as long as you can stay out of all the rigmarole and horse shit and whatnot. But
I worked myself into a shoot. I saw a thing by Ricky Morton. I heard him say it so many times. He posted a little thing on Twitter. I don't know what he was going through, but he just said, "Don't work yourself into a shoot." And that's kind of what I did on Instagram. I just sit there and get myself worked up, like, get your head back in the car. And I'd be like, I see someone, like fucking jumping out of a plane, 55 years old, first time experience. I'm going to do it for myself. And I'm like, don't fucking jump out of a plane. I'm sitting there looking like, someone I'm following, they're doing this dangerous shit, but it started hitting triggers. I'm like, get away from the edge.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, Bobby, the person's fucking alive. They posted a picture. You don't even know them. Let it go, dude. And I'm like, I'd be in a shoot, though, yelling at my phone going, step back.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway. So that's what was going on inside besides the, let me check his hot chick out, Let's move to number 4. How about that?
Well, so we actually have to kind of make a caveat here. Number 4 and number 3 are actually both tied with each other. Yes. So we have them in this order, but don't read too much into it. These guys are sharing the same approximate spots here. But who do we have here, Bobby?
We wrote it down this way. We wrote down Inoki first, okay?
Yes.
And Inoki was amongst the first professional wrestlers who tutored in the art of hooking and shooting by professional wrestler Carl Gotch. Now, Inoki named his method of fighting strong style, and it still goes on today. The method of wrestling, which is taught by Inoki, who was taught them by Gotch, they brought heavily from professional wrestling original catch wrestling roots as catch or catch can, or as one of the most important influences of the modern day shoot wrestling. The Inoki was fired from JWA for trying to take it over, and this is where some things started happening big time in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I think New Japan came out in 1974, if I'm not mistaken, is when that took place, or the break when he started New Japan, I should say. I'm going to let you read some other things here. The only other thing I want to say on this part, of course, I'll add into yours. Inoki, he's known for the fight 1976 against Muhammad Ali, and went out and got that publicity. His company's just a couple years old. He's getting well known in this and that. When he wrestled, fought, mixed martial arts, what you want to call it, against Ali, the boxer, was the greatest for a reason. But who did Inoki have up in his corner? He had Carl Gotch with him. Mm-hmm. And there was an article that I think was in like Gain magazine. Of course, I've heard the stories. Carl firsthand. There's a couple really good shoot interviews on YouTube. You got to look them up. But he basically had his New Japan warm-up pants on, I guess. Underneath them, he had his wrestling tights. And while they're standing there getting the instructions from the referee, one Gene LaBelle, I guess Gotch pulled his pants open just a little bit and looked at Ali and said, just in case there's any monkey business. And he just kind of showed him that he had his pants on like, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
That would have been interesting, but not necessary, thankfully.
Yeah.
That could have turned into, a big clusterfuck, as much as it was anyway, but they got the publicity they wanted out of it. Well, they didn't get really to fight, per se, the way they wanted it, but they got the fight.
Yeah.
Gotch was there, I got Inoki's back, motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, for anybody who hasn't seen it, if you're going to go watch this, just find the highlight clips. It's really not worth watching the whole thing. But if you want to talk about a ring full of some of just the baddest sons of bitches walking the planet at the time, it's easy now to give Inoki shit. Inoki's a bad motherfucker. Okay. Yeah. Muhammad Ali, bad motherfucker. Gene LaBelle, bad motherfucker. Carl Gotch, bad motherfucker. These are all 4 guys you would not want to fuck with,
Right.
And so it just, if shit had gone down, that would have been an ugly, ugly, ugly ass scrum in that ring.
Yes.
So Inoki's got a really, really interesting past. We're not going to be able to do it justice or even be able to scratch the surface of it here. But his family fled Japan when he was quite young, and he was raised in Brazil. And upon meeting Ricky Dozen in Japan, Ricky Dozen talked him into coming back to Japan full time and working with him at JWA. he actually converted to Islam back in the 90s, early 2000s. Okay. He has had 2 stints in what is basically Japan's Congress called the House of Counselors. He kind of ran New Japan into the ground at one point where he decided he was going to combine wrestling with shoot fighting, and he was making his wrestlers fight shoot fighters, and it kind of turned into a giant mess. And then a video game company ended up having to buy New Japan from him, or the controlling interest in New Japan, just so they quit running it into the ground. Now, of course, since that's happened, New Japan is one of the top promotions in the world again. But, that was just Inoki getting old, I think, I mean, dude's got a seriously good style in the ring. You can go back and watch his matches. They are standout matches almost each and every time. He did have a booking pattern of, come out, do your shit, and then Inoki wins, though.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, we're referring to, when we say JWA, that was Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but it was around from 1953 to 1973.
Yeah.
That's when we said Inoki started New Japan in around 74-ish. But anyway, the acronym was JWA. That's what we was talking about, was Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance.
Yes. And that will come up again,
Yes, that's why I'm leaving it there. Let's move on to the second gentleman that we're putting on the same level. Like you said, it's kind of a draw for this, and that's the way we had them written down in our notes, or that the good professor wrote them up that way. And equally important, who we got?
All right. Well, this is going to be Giant Baba. I would say if you're me and Bobby's age or older, you've seen Baba. If you're younger, that name may mean nothing to you. But he was Ricky Dozen's other lead student at the JWA. And, Baba, upon leaving the JWA, Ricky Dozen's sons followed him where they founded All Japan Pro Wrestling. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. He had the PWF Heavyweight Championship that he put together, which I believe was a combination of 3 world titles at the time, if I remember correctly. He held the NWA Heavyweight Championship at least once, and I believe that's an official win as well. Oh God, I gotta go through so much of this. Winning it from Jerry Briscoe. And when he started to age out, now this is unusual for a promoter who's like, Vern Gagne didn't really do this, and Inoki definitely didn't do it. As Baba started to age out, he kept himself in the ring, but playing support for his younger upcoming guys. And then he was also a real big pusher of the big name Gaijin over there, the Dory Funks, Bruiser Brody, Abby. Stan Hansen was his number 1 dude. Mm-hmm. He was, I mean, if you can hear Stan Hansen tell stories about Baba and his wife all day long, and just like how his loyalty to them trumped his loyalty to anybody here in the States. Yeah. I know I'm kind of cruising through this really fast here.
No, that's okay. One thing I wanted to go back and point out when they debuted in 72, the Nippon Television backed them. That was big. That was because they had TV, and that was huge, having some TV sponsorship, obviously.
Yes.
Where you could see All Japan on a weekly basis. I think when I was there, it was on Saturdays, and it was, I don't know, maybe a 3-hour block. There was also, while I was there, because things have changed since 1972, some of the wrestling, there was a channel, and I don't know what this was, Jeremy, to be honest with you. It made like a Wild World of Sports type deal of wrestling, a world of sport of wrestling, or however you want to say it. It had on there, it wasn't just a All Japan or a New Japan. It was actually, they would go around and they would, and that might have been like an hour program. I'm not really sure. I only saw it a couple of times because I saw myself on there because I was told when to watch it. And I appreciate the person that told me when to watch it. But it was, they would do any promotion, and they actually went around. I think my match came on right after a New Japan match, and I was with Jinsei, Hakushi or whatever, and I had like about a 12-minute match with them, and they put the whole thing on there for Michinoku, and that was because Sasuke told me, you're going to be on TV. And I was really happy, but I watched the whole program, and I think it was like second or third match right after, like I said, New Japan, and I'm not quite sure. It seems like maybe it was the Wings or Rings or Battle Wars or something. Another promotion came on right after my match,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that still goes on, but like I said, TV's changed, but having that TV coverage at the beginning is so huge, as we know, as we talked about in the like in the United States territories, all had, that little local TV and hit so many markets, a 400-mile radius or whatever it was back in the day to cable, changed that. But the same thing in Japan. Baba was instrumental in having professional wrestling on TV.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, probably instrumental in getting the next level of having wrestling treated as a legitimate sport as well. Even though we're going to hear about the first guy who really did it shortly.
Yeah.
Well, what was the other thing? It's like Baba wrestled 3,000 dates without missing one.
I was hoping you bring that up.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy was a workhorse. Now if you do go watch his matches when he's older, you can tell he's slowed way the hell down.
Yeah.
But that's just going to be part of being that big and that old. It's going to happen. But I think Baba's greatest legacy is setting himself aside to help push younger wrestlers. That, and he also created what is called King's Road booking. And it's an entire style of storytelling that Baba created. And if you ever want to learn more about it, Dave knows, our friend Dave Lee, he has a great video on YouTube that breaks down the whole system. And it is a fascinating year or two long process of taking a guy from being the underdog to being the champion or the winner of this feud. It is really something.
Watch that myself.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And I'm not even going to try to encapsulate it. Dave does a great job, so check his out.
There you go. Right on, man. Right on.
Yep.
Good deal. So, with that said, we'll take a quick break right there, Jeremy. How's that?
That sounds good.
The next gentleman we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of books I've got. Let me get just a quick drink of water here. Man, I was thirsty today.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple books out there. If you'd like to help sponsor this show in a small part, and believe me, it's a small part, we get a kickback, 12 cents or 20 cents. It's debatable. But nonetheless, what's happened is What happening is I wrote some books and they're available at Amazon. But what the professor did, he put a couple links up there so you can get to them easier. And again, we do get some kickback. My first book is called Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. All you have to do is type in tinyurl.com/blazebook1. It'll take you right to that book. And as I told you last week, Professor, that's where I do put some Japanese stories or stories about Japan in that book, because it's called Have Boots Will Travel. And it talks about my travels throughout the world, with Japan being one of those places that I was fortunate enough to be booked in 5 different times. So for tours, pretty cool. Anyway, the second book, I kicked that on too, The Educational Wrestler. Just go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2. It'll take you right to the link, and you'll see it right there. It's got, I don't know how many reviews that's got, 27, 29 reviews. It ranks in at about a 4.5, and man, I'm real happy with that. Pin Me, Pay Me has like 130 reviews, and I'm really happy about that. But appreciate the reviews. Just ask for fair and honest reviews. Right now, I've been going back and forth with a gentleman that's off of Twitter that bought my book. He put a picture about it, hey, it just arrived, and now he's talking to me. It's I'm gonna go ahead and call him out here. It's at Meeple Mania, MEEPLE_mania, and it's Meeple Mania, the game. And it's pro wrestling style strategy game top in the developmental stages. Lifelong fan of professional wrestling, especially the 80s through 2000s. Just getting back into it. And he's from Brittsburg, Pennsylvania. So I think he might be a
Britt Baker fan. Yeah.
There you go. But he bought the book and was kind enough to post a couple of pictures when it came in. And then, No bullshitting around, folks. Just letting you know, I think it's pretty cool. Got this little tweet the other day. After reading about this match, it's talking about me and Dan Severn. There's a match about Severn and myself, and he had to go look at a match about YouTube, with me and Severn. And so anyway, I saw another one this morning, and I said, hey, go check out the second match from Knoxville and against Dan Severn, and he did. And he wrote in there, hey, I like the second one as well, or also seemed like you got a little more out of them. And it's just nice. You go back and forth on Twitter. Like I said, I'm at Bobby Blaze 744, and this gentleman, again, I hope I'm doing this right. Meeple, Meeple Mania, the game. And it's cool that someone interacts about one of their, and I'm an avid reader. Now I got my damn eyes fixed, and I even ordered some glasses yesterday, Jeremy. I didn't pour my new script post first pair post cataract surgery. Yeah, there you go. And I'm looking forward to it. So I'll be getting back in some reading again. And it's good to interact with someone, because I do have a lot of authors and other writers on my page, and it's good to interact like that. So anyway, again, both books are out there. I kicked that on too. The Educational Wrestler is the second one. And just go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2. If you want my first book, it's Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots to Travel. Go to tinyurl.com/blazebook1. And that's the plug for that, man, because we got to move on here.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right. Number 2, and I know we're going to have to talk about him, but Bobby, here's a man I know you have met.
Yes.
And who the Japanese declared a god of pro wrestling, or a god of wrestling. They didn't bother distinguishing the pro. This is going to be Karl Gotch. Literally the guy who refined and kind of created the system of wrestling that Japan is probably most famous for now. I mean, he started wrestling there in 72. He had his first match against Inoki, and he actually won. And his final match is 1982 when he pinned Fujiwara with the German suplex. So he had a nice 10-year career going over there.
Yeah.
It was his cat style that everybody was trying to copy. And all the guys who founded the Japanese UWF were Gotch students.
Right. Let me interrupt real briefly.
Yes.
He did have matches in Japan in the 60s, maybe as early as 62 or 63, but the big run didn't start again, like you said, to 72 rather.
Yeah.
So anyway, and he ended up having a coaching job there. Go on and talk about some of the stars that he coached, if you don't care.
Suzuki, Matsuda, Sayama, Kito, Barry Darso. Boy, his name looks out of place there. Suzuki, Fujinami, Maeda, and Fujiwara.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you can put Inoki and all those other guys in there. But
sure.
These are just the people he trained at New Japan with Inoki.
Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You know who his number one pupil was, don't you?
No, who's that?
A young man by the name of Jody Simon of Tampa, Florida. Yeah, also known as Joan Malenko, okay? So I'm going to read just something a little here from the Tampa Bay Times. This is Japan honors this god of wrestling 10 years after his quiet death in Tampa. This is from 2017. Carl Istaz lived in Tampa quietly for 30 years. When he died, his friends followed his wishes and scattered his ashes without ceremony over Lake Keystone in Odessa. Born the European born Istaz, or more to point, his alter ego, Karl Gotch, was revered across Japan as a hard-nosed professional wrestler whose style influenced so many in the industry that fans, peers nicknamed him Kimasama, or deity. Okay, he was their god of wrestling, said Jody Simon of Tampa, Florida, a student. Fast forward 10 years, and they're doing this anniversary. I'll skip over some of those notes, okay? 20 years, Japanese media outlets attended the Tokyo funeral, and they had this beautiful black onyx tombstone founded by Inoki, the biggest star in the history of Japanese professional wrestling, and a national political leader, best known internationally for his, as we mentioned, fight against Muhammad Ali. In addition, it had all these big stars there to honor him. Off and on for 10 years, Simon worked to see his mentor honored in Japan. because his best friend in Tampa was Simon's father, Larry Simon, known in professional wrestling as the evil Russian Boris Malenko. So there you go. And Simon got nowhere until he got to the ear of Inoki. And that's when a Japanese wrestler named Nishimura got into it. And anyway, it goes on a couple little things here real quickly. Carl didn't win a Nobel Prize, said Simon, but in professional wrestling, he did amazing things and made a lot of people happy in Japan. He was born in Belgium and raised in Germany. He represented his native country in the 1948 Olympics in both freestyle and Greco-Roman. He sought to leverage the legitimacy into the success of professional wrestlers. He performed in Tampa and across the United States, but never achieved much fame in a market where glitz and glamour count as much as athletic ability. He wasn't as flashy as the other guys in wrestling of his day, said historian Barry Rose, because he was serious.
Yeah.
What's more known was Gotch had a temper. Outside the ring, he once beat up National Wrestling Alliance World Champion Buddy Rogers. I think that took place in Columbus, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. I think someone blocked the door and someone walked out with a broken arm.
That's. I think that's what I'd come across.
Bill Miller, maybe. Yeah, Bill Miller, maybe. With Japan, toughness comes first. Fans of the United States professional wrestling find it there's a lot familiar in Japan wrestling, including the kind of popularity that draws in big audiences and money. Promotions sell out stadiums. Grapplers become A-list celebrities. So, just kind of reading on here, just let you know. Blah, blah, blah. Just you get the idea, man. But I get down to this part down here. He held the New Japan Pro Wrestling World title twice, climbing to the top with the help of submission holds that could make opponents cry out in actual pain. He changed wrestling across Japan, Simon said. He cultivated that down and dirty wrestling on a mat with submissions, as you was just talking about. Wrestlers from all over Japan came to him to train during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And again, let me just finish this up here. Josh Barnett and Ken Shamrock trained in grappling and submission under Gotch. And it's just so much. Anyway, talks about when Jody was 14 and he trained with him for 7 years with every day. So he taught me more than anything in wrestling, and he taught him a code of ethics and how to be a man. He really, I heard about that relationship and saw it firsthand, and one day he told Jody, "I'm proud of you." And Jody said, "I'm floored." He never complimented people. He died at the age of 82. At his request, there was no funeral, no marker were placed. And Simon says, "Well, you never know who lives next door." Here's this guy who lived in Tampa. Most people didn't even know, but in Japan, he was a god. So I've saved that article, man. I thought that'd be something to share with everyone. Yeah, thanks for letting me share it. Because obviously, there's not a whole lot more we could say. We was just talking about. Coming in number 2, that shows who changed a little bit the face of professional wrestling in Japan, and that's what we're talking about there. Anything like that, Professor?
No, just that it's going to be kind of odd to have a European in the list of greatest Japanese, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it's only because Frank Gotch's participation was transformational to pro wrestling in Japan. That is his contribution. He changed
took that Gotch name.
Yeah. I guess that's the other thing is he took the name from Frank Gotch, who was like one of George Hackenschmidt's greatest competitors. And, apparently the match where he beat Hackenschmidt, he punched him in the nose first. But yeah, so that's Carl Gotch. Bobby, you met him.
Yes.
And
I wanted to say, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and I wonder how the other professor felt about his son training with Carl Gotch.
Well, I'll tell you a couple stories. First of all, what I did, the first time I saw Carl, they had a picture up at the gym of him doing, it was a black and white picture. It's taken in Japan. You can see the huge sellout on one side. It's a really, really nice, professionally done picture because I think it was from a newspaper, if I'm not mistaken. And Carl has got someone in a beautifully executed German suplex. His bridge is perfect. His head's on the mat. The other guy's shoulders on the mat. And I don't know how old he was in the picture, but it, you know, you just see the ring conditioning and his muscle definition, and it's just beautiful, beautiful picture. Anyway, I was sitting there talking to Malenko, him and myself talking, and Joe and Dean were in a ring. They had, you know, a beginner's ring and an advanced ring. This was a Sunday afternoon. Some of the people had went home, kind of winding down, and I'm sitting in these, you know, fold-up chairs. Larry and I are speaking to each other, just kind of watching some things. You know, nothing special was really going on. And Carl walked in and walked straight by Larry and myself and kept on walking. He was there to see Jody, and Larry looked at me, or Miss Malenko, whatever, Boris. He says, "Look right," just turned to me and he went, "One tough son of a bitch right there, Bobby." And I go, "Yeah, I've heard." He goes, "He's the man." And he goes, he whispers now, because Gotch is over talking. Dean walks away. There wasn't much there between them two as far as I knew. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, Larry starts telling about this story. He was training Joe, and he said, if you imagine this wall behind us, if having an opening with one ring in there and one ring in here, and he was in there teaching the advanced at the time at another school Professor Malenko had at the time. He goes, just imagine this wall right here behind us having a little opening just to walk between each ring, right? He goes, I'm sitting here one day after coaching. I hear Carl in the other room. Next thing I know, Jody flies through the wall. Not the door, the wall. And he says, Bobby, that's my son. He just flew through the wall. He goes, that's my son. Now, the way he said it was like, I think, a panel wall where you got the studs and didn't have no, you know, maybe some sheetrock, and that's that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He goes, that's my son. He goes, but he just got back up and went in there. You know, he goes, but, you know, was I supposed to go back in there and, you know, whatever happened, you know. But Carl was the only baby face in, I think it's Richmond, Virginia, to come back out of the stand or come back out of the locker room when Larry got slashed with a knife. I think he had like 76 stitches down his back. And Carl came back out as a baby face to save a heel, you know, his friend.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the first time when Carl walked in. He didn't talk to anyone. He goes and does his business and leaves. The next time I'm invited over to Carl to Malenko's house, we're going to watch a shoot fight on before UFC. It was something built from Japan. It was maybe the UFW they had just recorded over there. I'm not sure. They had that. I think he opened that in 88, 89 at the Egg Dome. They like sold 69,000 tickets at the time over at the Tokyo Egg Dome for the UWF, where all these stars that we was talking about, Fujiwara and Malenko and all of them had that big show. Anyway, I walk in, and there. First of all, I already knew this too. Carl didn't like guys with long hair.
Right.
He learned to talk English from the military, the U.S. soldiers in and around World War II. So, you know, being over in Europe, and he always admired the American soldiers. You know, having short hair and in play. You know. So he respected that, not long-haired guys that want to be, you know, professional wrestlers. That'll, you know, not, in his book, two different styles. But anyway, I was like, oh, man, I'm not going to get over this guy at all, I don't guess, in my mind. But he was sitting in a chair in front of the TV, and I walked in, a couple other people in the room. We're all expected, you know, come by there and watch. And he leans up to stand up. He pushes off with one arm and, you know, starts to stand up. And he reaches out and grabs. I said, hi, Bobby, you know, and put my hand out there. He grabbed my hand. I thought he could rip my fucking arm out of my sock. He goes, gotch. And I, yes, sir, I know who you are, you know. And he casually sat back down, but he still had my hand. And I just followed that hand until he let it go. And I was like, that's nice to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you, you know. And then I went over and got a soda or whatever, you know, sit there like a couple chairs behind him was, you know, had my place there. But yeah, and he started calling bullshit on some of the matches. I think he had a little Irish whiskey going, you know. Larry'd get him a little bit of coffee, but he had doctored up a little bit. And the more Carl got riled up and the more cheeks got red, you know.
Yeah.
He was calling bullshit on some of this shoot fighting because to him, he was, you know, I think he was like 60-something then, and he's he's ready to go through fucking TV and like, that's not how it's done. You can't do it that way. This is a fucking work. He's still getting hot. But yeah, so I did meet him, and I'm glad I did. And also when I moved home, I had his phone number, and I called him several times. I'd gotten to know him not very well, but through Willie, because that's one of his students, also Willie Wilkerson Jr. I did get to see him train some, and I knew his son-in-law, Masami. So I would call. I didn't pester him or anything, but I did call and talk to him about conditioning. I was working for Smoky Mountain at the time, and spoke to him about just being on the road. And I try to be very respectful, and was just being like a gentleman, because at this point Malenko had passed away, and that was someone that I at least knew that I could just talk to. 15-minute conversations, and that's that,
Yeah.
Not deep conversation, but just conditioning. You got to do this, how about this? How's this going? How is it up these days? Just very casual, very polite, very respectful. And I'm glad I made those calls. And it's probably 3 calls, maybe 4. This all took place over maybe from 95-ish to probably 97-ish, maybe. Just, what I'm saying, maybe 96, actually. I lie. Maybe 95, 96, about 4 calls. So a couple of times a year. But yeah, anyway. So there it is about Carl Gosch. And the reason I spoke so much about that, because you're going to bring up number 1, and you can talk a hell of a lot more about number 1, probably more than I did about number 2. But you're going to smart me about this gentleman, too. I did a little bit of research doing this in the past, because you said, I think one day I'm going to do something on this, Bobby. And I was like, well, when you do, I think it'll be good. So who's number 1?
All right. So number 1 is going to be Ricky Dozen. Literally the first name in Japanese pro wrestling. He kind of came onto the scene post World War II, and Japan was a beaten dog at this point. I mean, we'd bombed them with the nuclear bombs. The only time in history that had ever been done. They were under a military dictatorship of our governors at that point. Ricky Dozen comes onto the scene as a pro wrestler, a Japanese hero, where they bring in big name gaijin wrestlers, and he would beat them. He would get the win. And this elevated him to a level of stardom that was kind of unknown at the time. So he was the guy that founded, what were we calling that? JPW? No, wait.
Yes.
JWA? No, JPW.
Yes, JWA.
Oh, JWA, that was it. And he started, he got wrestling on TV. He would go around and face the big names. He'd traveled the world and bring in the biggest name, Western wrestlers for him to wrestle and defeat. He started under the name Mitsuhiro Matsunaga. He changed it to Masahiko Kimura. He got into buying nightclubs and, property. So he was getting to the point where he was really, really, really wealthy. And then in 1963, he was leaving one of his nightclubs, pissed a dude off. Dude was a member of a organized crime family. And so he shanked, Ricky Dozen. Ricky Dozen was supposed to take it easy for a while, but he decided after he got stitched up, he was going to go back to drinking and cavorting and, doing his regular nightly thing, got an infection and passed away. After his death, it turned out that, Masahiko Kimura was actually Korean. And his family had sent him to escape the poverty in Korea to Japan at the age of 11, where he was folded into Japanese society completely. Koreans at this point were a second-class citizen to Japan. Korea was almost conquered by Japan, basically wholesale. So he hid his Korean roots, and he adopted to Japanese lifestyle completely, and until he died, nobody knew. And some people will still say that's not true. And then it also turned out he may have had a second family, which, if you know the Japanese at all, if that kind of shit gets out, that would be really frowned upon as well. His 2 biggest students, Bobby, were Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Who
knew that'd come up.
Yep. Who would go on to try, I believe they tried to keep the JWA going, with Ricky Dozen's sons, but it just wasn't working out. So they Inoki got fired for basically trying to do a hostile takeover of the JWA. Mm-hmm. Inoki gets fired. Giant Baba leaves with they basically fold up the JWA.
Yeah.
And Ricky Dozen's sons go with Baba, and they form All Japan Pro Wrestling. And that is the birth of pro wrestling in Japan, essentially.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, I had one question. I think we talked about this off the air, and it's really, it's a little bit irrelevant as to yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard that this guy, and I can't remember where I read it at or heard it from, that the guy pissed on the knife when he stabbed him. And that really, I guess, set off the infection too. I don't know. Because it seems to me once you go to the hospital to clean the infection out, no matter what or not, just maybe one of those, stories that makes it better. Not that it makes it better. I'm just saying.
So
Bobby, I know what you're telling us is true. He did get shanked, and he come back out thinking he's going to be all right, and it got infection. Either way.
Yeah. So I would say that was probably just something that was said.
Yeah.
First off, the Yakuza made the guy who stabbed him apologize, because they're like, dude, that's Ricky Dozen. You don't fuck with Ricky Dozen. But secondly, if you piss on a blade, urine is sterile when it leaves the body.
Okay.
So I would say
Thank you.
I would say that is probably not true.
Yeah.
Just because if it dried, then bacteria could start to live on it. But if it dried, I would say you're not putting it into somebody with a stab wound.
So I'm thinking what's happened is in translation, lost in translation here, Professor.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said that the way you said it today was he pissed someone off and got shanked. See that, or
Oh, yeah.
So you got the piss and then you got the stabbing. So someone could have said in Lost in Translation, "Oh yeah, the guy peed on it." It's one of those things, a telephone game, like
Yep.
I told you this and you tell me that. I was just curious. I believe your take on it. I was just curious about that. And again, what you said makes so much more sense. And I know it's a little bit off topic there about that. But here's the thing, man. This list was so fun to do. I hope our fans was happy with it. We knew going into this thing, it's going to probably be a two-parter, and I think we've done it justice. I really do. I hope that the people, if you didn't know a lot about Japanese wrestling, I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. And also, I'm going to go back over our social media. I can be found at Bobby Blaze 744 on Twitter. Jeremy can be found at the Geekish Cast, or go to Twitter or Facebook to the Bell Blaze, and hit us up there with any information you'd like to share or any questions you have. We can answer them about this Japanese professional wrestling. And I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 weeks. I enjoy every week, but especially the last 2 weeks because of my connection to Japan. And Professor, I appreciate you for putting all your effort into this homework that we've done with these notes. And I knew you would know so much more about Ricky Dozen, and I'm glad I got to give Carl some credit, and it all worked out that way.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, man. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode as much as you and I did doing it. I really do.
Yeah, I do as well. Everybody out there listening, if you could remember to go rate, like, review, and whatever, wherever you listen to our show, it would help us out a lot. We're kind of plateaued as far as listeners. And we need to either see some growth or we got to make some changes. So,
sadly, that's what's going to happen. I didn't want to really bring this up on there, but here's what's happening. I look at the ratings when they come out on my Gimmick Weekly. What the hell I get on Monday mornings, where last week's show was at, or what have you. And we're kind of plateauing, like you said, and. Man, we need to do something, or probably Chartable Digest. We have been going down a little bit, Professor, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're involved with the Star Wars, and I wish you nothing but success in that. So it has no bearing on this show whatsoever as far as our rating, nothing like that. We're still trying to put out a quality product. We're going to try to run this thing to at least the end of May and see what happens. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's kind of what we was going to talk about off the air, but we just brought it up. Let's clear it out of the air now. We hope you like the show. Go out there and, again, give us a fair and honest review. And, if not, we just got to make some changes, man. That's all there is to it. But, again, let me throw this out there for anything. If something does happen, there's no heat between the professor and myself. Nope. Nothing like that. It's just time consuming, and put the effort into it, and topics and stuff. We want it to be good for the fans. We love what we're doing, but we're kind of just stuck there right now, man. So, if you can, retweet us on Twitter and help us out a little bit. And if not, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we got some good shit planned.
Yeah. Well, are we doing Mexico next?
Oh, well, see, you brought that up on the air. That's scary to me. There's so much rich history there. I don't know if we can get it all done in 1 week. Maybe
okay, no, you know what?
Project,
we should wait. We should take a couple weeks to put that together.
Yeah, that may take some time to put together. And a two-parter, probably.
But
we have talked about that. Yes, sir. To answer your question, we did talk about Mexico being next on a country revisited in professional wrestling. But I think it's going to take a little bit longer than a week to research, and also probably 2 episodes.
Oh, you know what'd be fun? Yeah. You know what'd be fun, Bobby?
What?
Venues.
Okay. I thought we visited a couple.
We did a couple, but we've never done a top 10 on them, I don't think.
Yeah. I think you're right. You're right. Because we had the Olympic Auditorium following us back for a while there. Mm-hmm. We talked about the Mid-South Coliseum. So, we can start our top 10 on that, and maybe that'll be next week's topic. How's that?
That sounds good, and that
Great.
Sounds, okay. So join us next week when we talk about top 10 wrestling venues.
There you go.
Yeah.
See you at the matches, wrestling fans.
For myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, the late Tex Johnson, my very noisy little dog, Cowdog, over here, and now she's looking at me, and Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody.